Being human. Do you ever wonder what makes us who we are? Our habits, preferences, or where we came from? We are expressing ourselves in thousands of ways every day through our choices. Let's have a conversation with people who are having interesting lives. My name is Alan Walker. I'm a doctor of chiropractic and a human being. So here we are again, another podcast for Being Human, and I've got a very good friend of mine with me today, Daz Holroyd, coming from Essex, and he's here to speak to us a little bit about a couple of things that he's excellent at doing and some things that you might not be aware of in the way of how we teach children and certain things he's picked up during his life and recently after doing a very interesting course, which is the main reason I wanted to bring you on. But there's other things that I know that you're really good at, that you can teach us about, including sleep and sleep behaviours, that sort of thing. And I know as well that you've taken a great interest in the history of medicine and following specifically really the use of psilocybin over the centuries, in fact probably going back thousands of years if not longer, and how it's being used today by general practitioners, and how it's being used to help people with different types of illnesses. So we've got a little bit of time to talk about those sort of three things, but I want to welcome you, Daz. Thanks very much for coming on.
No worries. Thanks for, nice to see you again, Alan, and Marina, after meeting you guys at the festival a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
We had a good time.
We did. There was a festival. Well, do you want to explain what the festival was?
Elementary in Oxford. I'd heard lots of good things. You went last year, and I think we talked about it. We only knew each other for a few conversations, but the quality of the time that we had together, had such a laugh. And then you said, come to Northampton, and I was like, yep. And then here, what was that, 3 weeks ago, and here we are.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it was a really good festival. And the things that you were talking to me about, I thought we'd got to have you on as soon as possible, while I can still get hold of you and really learn some of those bits. So one of the things we spoke about there was I explained to you about one of the I went to a retreat where which was down in Kent. It was in a church hall, and I explained to you a little bit about it, and the things that were happening there was it's about getting to know yourself, spending some time being calm and chilled, and it followed really using dance as a way of calming yourself. So what was interesting, what I explained to, what I was talking to you about, and how it went on to a bigger conversation, I was explaining to you about we were paired off. There was 18 people there. There was 2 pairs of 9, and out of the 9 pairs, one of them was blindfolded. And during that session, it was very quickly you learn to trust the other person, and knowing that the other person was going to be there while you listen to some music. It was live music there. It was South American music. And during that time, I didn't start to dance at first. It was just the sound of a buffalo drum, just a slow beat every second. And then the musicians started to play. And with the use of no medicines, of any type of description or alcohol, just completely without any of those things, just relaxing. And people started to move. I started to move. I forgot very quickly that I was there with these strangers. And I'm not known as a dancer. I'm certainly not.
Was this the blindfolded bit or the not blindfolded?
This was blindfolded.
Right.
There was some breathing done beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
And we just all, I guess, started to move. I certainly did. And it went on for probably round about, I would say, 6 or 7 minutes before I completely lost myself.
Right.
Forgot where I was. And we were in a town. It was like a little small town, and a tiny little village hall on the edge. Wooden village hall, with chairs on the inside, and a stage where the music was playing. And they were watching us moving and gradually building up the tempo. I'm remembering I'm blindfolded. I didn't know where the chairs were, where the other people were. But I did know at the beginning, before I lost myself, that there was someone with me to make sure I was going to be fine. And I was explaining to you that I never touched the chair. I never hit a wall.
Yeah.
I never hit another person while I was there, and yet I danced myself crazy. And the music tempo went up and down, and they played with all of us. We were all dancing in our own way, but to the beat of the music that was being played.
And when you're not blindfolded and you're at a club or whatever, you're having a dance, it's guaranteed you're going to bash into someone at some point.
Absolutely. So and you've got your eyes on the front of your face. So I was feeling, obviously, there's some sort of energy. So when the music eventually stopped and I found myself lying on the floor, not falling over or anything, I'd actually put myself on the floor and I was just relaxing at sort of the end as the tempo changed into more of a relaxation situation. I thought to myself, how come I haven't touched anyone, and that the lady must have been there the whole time. And the fact that she hadn't put a hand on me at any time to let me know there was a wall or a chair, it brought a lot of questions to me about what was actually happening there. And I thought, well, perhaps I was just lucky. So when the blindfold came off, I found I was at the other end of the village, of the hall, and so everyone else was in their different places as well. And I wondered whether they'd hit any chairs or people, or had been told to be careful, where they were, just a little tap on here, a little tap on there, because it was quite frantic dancing. There was a bit of shouting going on as well. People really did let loose. So I explained this to you, and then I explained that when it was my turn to be the mind of this lady that was there, she was a lovely Afro-Caribbean lady who was from London, and she was she'd done this many times before, she told me, and she put we went through the breathing again, the blindfolds, and the music started, and we're going back into a trance-like state, just like I had. And I watched this lady dance, and beautiful what she was doing, but she moved all over that village hall and didn't touch a chair.
Right.
She was dancing quite near the walls quite often and bringing her arms up, doing her thing without touching a wall. She never touched a single thing, just like me. And I was aware that there was something going on. There's another sense going on here. I've heard about this stuff, but unless you see it for yourself, for me, I take it with a pinch of salt. Well, I explained this to you, and I was so interested in what you told me about what you had learned on a course and how you teach children yourself, using this type of technique, or with an understanding of other senses that we hold as humans.
That's it, yeah. So you weren't using your eyes, ears, nose, mouth, or touch when you were doing this dancing, and I guess the breathing was to get you out of your analytical mind and get you into that calm, that present state. But so the version I explain to people, when I try to explain what I actually do, which is briefly, I teach kids how to hone into their own superpower. So kids, before they go through puberty, they're all right-sided brains, so they are all creativity and imagination, which is why kids say, "Oh, I'm going to be an astronaut or a footballer," because they haven't thought about the logical side, because that hasn't kicked in yet. So we've got both our sides going. So we have this resistance to it, and we don't feel like we're able to. We don't understand. So we're not able to learn this magic. But kids can actually completely see. They can read, write, play catch while they're blindfolded, and talking has to be properly blacked out as well. So I teach kids over a course of 10 weeks, 1 hour each week.
Ball blindfolded.
Yeah, and I first saw this. So I was already on this sort of journey. I've been following the signs for about 3 years now, because I've started off on this path where I had to give up alcohol, lose a lot of weight. And I did all this little by little, and then by doing this and then putting in little disciplines, so finding that I'm going to bed, waking up at the same time, I meditate at the right time of day, and I look after 3 or 4 things: my sleep, nutrition, exercise, and my thoughts, which I can go through a little bit more. But by doing all these things, I found that I clear the brain fog, and I have this I'm able to go every day, and I'm walking out and I'm always looking for, what am I going to find today, because things keep coming to me and I keep wondering, what am I going to be when I grow up? And I live by this rule of keeping 2 people happy in my life: my 9-year-old self and my 95-year-old self. My 9-year-old self will be that kid inside saying, are you having enough fun, are you being playful, are you getting outside, and are you laughing? Your 95-year-old self will be the old person sitting down thinking, did I do it right, did I keep my promises to myself, did I make enough memories, moments, did I hold on to too much hate about the neighbour that is just not going to matter when you're old? So keeping those 2 people happy, and I do that every day. And what I find is these opportunities come along, and they come along to all of us, but I'm looking for them. And this one was a fun one, because I don't watch much TV, but it was online. There was Gaia TV, and there was this program Superhumans, and they go around the world and they find people that can do extraordinary things. And there was this episode and said, now we're in Essex. And I said, oh, right, Essex. And then, yeah, these kids were just completely blacked out. They had this thing called a mindfold, which is like a blindfold plus, where you definitely can't see. And they were just playing catch, and they were reading and writing and doing all these things. And I just watched this 20-minute little snippet, and I just said, what is this? Because they just didn't really explain it in the actual show. Tracked the lady down from the show. Turns out she's the only teacher in Europe. She went to India and learned the Indian version and the Mexican version. They're the two places that it originates from, and it's using your intuition. So when I learned, I went to her house, learned for 3 days with her. Still didn't actually practice with any actual children. You just have to go straight in with your first lesson.
You have to be the child yourself, I guess.
Yeah, you cannot learn it. So adults can't learn it, but once you've learned it yourself before puberty, you can actually carry it on. So you can do this for life. So my very first student came the day after I'd done my last day of training. She straight away I was like, is this gonna work? And I did this thing called it's the activation. It's like a meditation, and the kids are growing the light inside. They're pushing their energy into the universe. They're gluing it. They're bringing the stars, that light down from the stars, throwing their worry into the light. So it's all these things that they do, and they get really excited about it because you could see their brains actually doing it physically. If you said this to a grown up, a lot of them would be like, what's this guy on about? So then straight away sit down, open up this colourful book, and I do these commands where I tell her exactly what she needs to do. Like I say, show me colours on the book, on the page, and then straight away, as soon as we sat down, she's like, I see green, I see red, and she would point to these colours and she was seeing them. My son, who's with me today, Dylan, he's 5. It's a little bit too immature to get it at that age, but I did first lesson with him and he was straight onto it. Lesson 3, I have number cards and letter cards, so they'll be reading and the numbers and the letters off the cards. Lesson 5, they'll be reading. By about lesson 10, so once they've done the 10 weeks with me and they've done a bit of practice at home and with their parents, my first student could, if the phone rings, she'll tell you who's ringing and what they're wearing. And if they're in the car, a mum could say, what colour car will come around the corner next? And she'll say, a blue car, and it'll be a blue car. It is ridiculous. It's unbelievable. But I guess the other version you could say as a grown-up is if you just get a feeling. So sometimes people say, it just doesn't feel right. And often you're correct, or most of the time you're correct, especially you get a bit older and wiser. And that time that you didn't listen to yourself, you're like, I knew I shouldn't have done that thing. So that's the kind of the grown-up version of it. But kids just have this inner superpower. They're little X-Men, and any kid can do this. As long as
you're saying that you can learn to teach it, but you won't be able to necessarily do it.
Yes, exactly that. So that's what I've done.
You can't do it,
no.
But you learned how to teach the children, and you're saying the children are doing it.
Absolutely, and it was more the interest in it, really. I mean, the version that I've done is I was away and I was reading up about intuition. This was when I was traveling in South America and about 15 years ago. I'm trying
to think of the Salva method. Is that something similar?
I'm not familiar.
The silver method. It works along the similar lines, but we will perhaps talk about that another time. I've got some information on that.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, it's always fascinating. But in a quick version, so when I was away traveling, reading about intuition, chatting to these 2 ladies outside a hostel during Rio Carnival, chatting to one of them about it, and they said, what do you mean? I said, is your birthday April the 24th? I don't know why I said it, and it turned out it was the right day, right month, and her friend screamed and they showed me the ID. A month later, I was in Peru and I was chatting to this other lady about it. She said, do me, and I said June 24th, and it was. And it freaked me out, and I don't know why I got 2 out of 2 straight off the bat. But then I learned I was away from my usual 3D world, crazy, all the stuff you're seeing. And when you're away from all that usual sensitization, you're able to go internal and tap into some of these senses. So I mean, this is just one that we kind of can hone, but there's probably a lot more to it all. So,
well, absolutely, we're relearning what it is to be human, I guess.
Some of the ancient practices as well. So some of these things that they would have done a long time ago are coming back.
Well, I'm sort of aware of these. 2 years ago, I remember I woke up in the middle of the night. My mother lives in America, in St. Louis, and my sister lives with her. She has some handicaps, but she can drive a car. Mm-hmm. And she has a son. She has a life that she gets on with, but she does need some care. and my mother cares for with her husband, cares for her, and she cares for her very well. And this night I woke up, and I'm not like this. Sometimes I don't speak to my mother for months and months and months, which is obviously lots and lots of seconds, lots and lots of minutes, lots and lots of hours, lots and lots of days. And I woke up in the middle of the night and something was wrong. Living in Daventry, woke up, and it was something to do with my mum, and I just dialed my mum. I don't know what time it was, 2-3 in the morning. And she answered, and I said, something's happened, what's happened? And she said, your sister she was hit while she was at traffic lights.
Right.
And the man who went through his red light hit straight into the side of her while she was sitting at the lights with her handbrake on, and he's dead.
Wow.
So that's my experience of something
unexplainable,
what they call supernatural in some way. I once made I don't guess about things like this. You know, the number one thing you don't do in this life is if we meet a woman, you say, are you pregnant? Because it brings on so many problems for men. But a friend of mine, I actually said it to her, and she wasn't showing, and she said, no, I'm not. And she was actually quite shocked that, you know, someone might, because it wasn't something she was planning for. 2 weeks later, she did and she was.
Oh, right. So you were a pregnancy test, human pregnancy test.
I don't know. I can't tell you about either of those things, what's actually going on, but they're two things.
An energy field of some kind.
I don't make phone calls at 2 o'clock in the morning to my mother.
Yeah,
and I don't say things like that to women because there's so many problems from trying to presume that someone's pregnant when they might just put on a couple of pounds.
Yeah.
So and this girl was showing nothing. I just felt that I needed to say this to her.
Yeah.
So it's I'm still in touch with these people today, and the child that she had is a professional football player.
Named Alan.
No. I think they've tried to forget about it like often I try to forget about it. So I don't know about these things. I just am aware that I built up some things I can't forget about. Things that have actually happened. And I don't understand them. And most people don't, because in this busy world, in this 3-dimensional world you spoke about, where there's too many things are hitting us from different directions. You're worried about our next meal, you know, are we thirsty? Should we do this? I wonder what we're doing tonight. What
and
film
if we're not, we're on our phone or whatever.
We're all of these things. So that's been my experience, and that's the reason why I was so interested in what you've got to say.
Yeah.
That you were able to teach children and bring out some extra senses that we don't know that we have.
That's it. Well, it's actually been a tougher sell than I first imagined. When I saw it, I was like, this is a game changer. Everyone's going to love this and going to be throwing kids at me to teach my kid. But then you say it to people and you say, right, I'm going to be teaching your kid how to be able to see and then some of them will go, I don't understand. Some will go, what do I want them to do that for? But I'll be referred kids that are struggling with anxiety and depression in school eventually, because what it does, it gives these kids a massive boost in their confidence, because they've got 45 minutes with me as well, praising them the whole time, because even if they get it slightly off, I'm still giving them so much praise, because when you praise their kids, their vision gets bigger. And I found that with my first few lessons, if I started to slow down my energy, because 45 minutes straight of giving that kid full-on one-to-one praise, it does take a bit out of you. But as soon as my energy dropped, my first student's vision started to close a little bit. As soon as I started picking it up, she could see everything and read everything. So it just shows that you really do need to keep that energy up, and it is all down to how much I guide them and that as well. So so they get this huge boost in confidence. They feel like a little X-Man. And they they're finding a way, it's like a tool they can use. So in the future, if they're at school and they're trying to find an answer, or they've got an issue or there's something going on, they can close their eyes and they can trust that inner feeling, because they know that they've been using that to be able to read, write, see, and all the other things.
This particular topic, I think it's possible for us to sit down and talk about it for hours.
Yeah.
And I think we haven't got that sort of time, and there's other things I want to speak to you about, because you also know quite a lot about sleep.
That's it, yeah.
And how most people aren't getting the sleep that they need.
Yeah, the quality of the sleep is the main thing.
Is it?
Yeah, so what it was I 3 years ago, during the COVID times, I was drinking a lot.
You weren't the only one.
No. I mean, mine got to a point. I mean, me and Dylan's mum, we broke up because of the drinking. I was 5 stone heavier. She was actually an amazing support as well throughout, which was fantastic. But I managed to gradually pull myself back. But what I did was I'd given up drinking for about the 5th time. And then I was on an airplane coming back from Spain, seeing my brother, and I was still a bit kind of unsure of myself. I was probably in that just coming towards the end of the honeymoon period after you give up alcohol and then you end up going back to it. And I heard the announcement, put your oxygen mask on before assisting others. And as soon as I heard that, I sat back in my chair and it hit me. I was like, because nothing happened. I didn't become unhappy or unhealthy overnight. It happened little by little by not putting my oxygen mask on. So what I learned was by creating 2 times of the day where I look after myself and look after those 2 times, which is just before going to bed and when I wake up, I was putting my oxygen mask on so I could assist others throughout the day and I could help others. But I started off by concentrating on sleep and learning about it. So not putting in hours of education, but just doing 5 to 20 minute little hits of education throughout the day. Because if you have a little short times of it, you're going to stick to it, but you're going to also take it in more. Because if you're watching an hour long podcast, or listening to a podcast or a YouTube video, it's going to, after a while, you're going to start to drop. But doing little 5 minute hits means I always kept it up. And what I did was I learned about my circadian rhythm, my nasal breathing, and I created a little night routine. So I just did the things that you already know you're meant to do.
What is circadian rhythm?
So that's our natural body clock. So we're meant to, in the morning, wake up, get outside, get 2 to 10 minutes of the natural sunlight in the top of our eyes, because we're animals, and that wakes up every organ in your body, and it tells your body it's wake up time. And then your brain starts producing adenosine, which is your sleepy drug. We throughout the day we change that. Well, as soon as we get up, if we don't get out of bed, we're not producing anything. Our body hasn't woken up properly, which is why you feel more tired if you just stay in bed. And then what we're doing is we're playing around with lights, phones, caffeine, and we're putting ourselves on a roller coaster with our hormones and our balance. So I decided, rather than say I'm going to give everything up forever, I decided I'm just going to tick every single box, all the things I already know that you're meant to do. I'm going to cut out the caffeine. I'm going to exercise at the right time. I'm going to set my circadian rhythm. I'm going to do little check-ins throughout the day with my posture and make sure I'm nasal breathing, which I'm not doing right now, but nasal breathing. So I'm stretching my nostrils. So it means, because a lot of people suffer with sleep apnea without even knowing it, and that, again, that's affecting the quality. So so they're not breathing through their nose correctly. That's it. And we're actually meant to have our mouth closed, and our nose has got the filter. So the reason I'm saying all this quick is because what I usually do is when I help others to give up alcohol, cocaine, antidepressants, and all these other things, where these people who are recommended to me, I get them first of all just to focus on their sleep only, nothing else. And I set them 3 nights of following a night routine and waking up with a morning routine as well, with a plan in the morning. Because when you actually get a good quality 6 to 8 hours where you're getting proper deep sleep, you wake up and you feel different. It's like your brain is just putting everything into place, like the game of Tetris. You walk out, you think about your to-do list, and your brain goes da 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 da, puts all the parts into place. You just know exactly how you're going to tackle each job. So I get clients to work on that first. They do 3 nights and 3 mornings of doing the things they meant to do. They go to bed and wake up at the same time, which just sounds so simplistic, but we do it for kids, and we know what happens when we come off our kids' routine. They're an emotional mess. The same thing is going on inside us. Our hormone balance is all over the place because we haven't got that good sleep, but we've got emotional intelligence, so we're able to hide it. So someone says, "You okay?" You go, "Yeah, you." You don't know, say, "Well, actually, not really." So my clients, first of all, they get their sleep right. They see how good they can feel with a proper sleep behind them, and they wake up in the morning and they feel like this powerful person. So then they have their morning plan. So they're waking up and they know exactly what they're going to do before they even start getting ready for work. They're always doing 5 to 10 minutes exercise in the mornings, whether they don't exercise or they're a regular gym goer. They are not missing a day for this period of time that they're working with me. So it might just be 5 minutes skipping in the morning, anything to get their heart rate going. Again, it's just another thing you already know that you're meant to do, but get disciplined with it, get organized with it. Just decide I'm going to do 3 nights, tick tick tick, of all those things I know what I'm meant to do. do it and just see how good you can actually feel with just a proper sleep behind you. And then with that extra energy, where you've cleared that brain fog, putting in 20 minutes education each day then to learn about your nutrition, not becoming a super duper dietitian person, but just understanding your gut biome, processed and ultra processed foods, what it's doing to our gut and our brain. Then
what's the difference between processed and unprocessed foods? Some people don't know the difference. What would you say what's your definition?
Well, from what I understand, processed and ultra processed is just it's what the damage it's doing. It's causing leaky gut, which is causing inflammation of the brain, and that's what's causing in younger people brain fog, but in older people dementia and Alzheimer's, which is why they now say that this generation are suffering, because they were the first generation who had those foods and they didn't have the education. We're lucky enough that we got the education now. So it's like I say, it's not trying to change everything overnight though, because you just will not stick to it if that's the case.
I do have don't mind me butting in. I have a little story just to pop in there about certain foods. So a friend of mine works for Domino's.
Yeah.
And he doesn't work for me. He owns one of the franchises.
Mm-hmm.
He's a franchisee. So he gets to know all the information that actually happens. Well, Domino's started in Japan.
Right.
Because they're in Japan now. People were throwing up when they're eating the pizza.
Because they're not used to that much.
Absolutely throwing up everywhere. They're not used to that type of gluten. They're not used to the type of cheese, the dairy products, everything. And literally their body was going, no, thank you. And he said, obviously now, and that carried on for a generation or so. So some people would be able to, with very, very slow growth in Japan, extremely slow growth. But now they're on for the next generation.
Their
DNA is starting to be able to deal with it, that their body's used to having some of this. It's in the history. Yeah, oh good. Well, thank God for poor old Domino's and these people. But no, it's now in the DNA.
Yeah.
So now they are able to hold it back. And there's no reason for him to tell me. He runs a Domino's. He's a franchisee.
Yeah.
But that shocked me a little bit.
Yeah.
And he said it mostly gluten. And he was explaining to me, he knows quite a lot about the science of digestion, and explaining that actually a lot of wheat products do affect us, and that most of us are gluten intolerant.
Yeah.
Nearly all of us is.
But we've trained ourselves to just about be able to cope.
We do. But he says every time that our bodies take on board certain amounts of product, whether it be gluten or what, there's a whole series of products that we think we should be eating, and so we do. Some of these products do actually damage us. Even some of the nutritious food that we're eating, some of the products do damage us. And the gut's designed for that. It re-heals itself depending on how bad the product is. Well, things like wheat and gluten, it's quite high problem for our bodies. And it does damage the surfaces of our intestine. And eventually, our body starts to tire. Our systems start to tire. And those products start to break through the surface of the intestine and end up in the bloodstream. When it happens in the bloodstream, you probably guessed what happens then. Straight away, our systems start to recognise and go, what is this product here? That shouldn't be here. And that's when the intolerance starts to build.
I see, yeah.
Affecting with people they're getting diarrhea, they can get the opposite, they can get constipation, a whole number of different things.
And people kind of write these things off as well, don't they? They'll say, I've just got a headache or a migraine. And someone taught me that you got a niggle in your stomach, what caused that? It's like a little puzzle. You go back far enough, you'll find that what you did wrong. There was something I've heard once, which I've kind of lived by, which was when things don't go to plan, rather than get mad at the situation, try and sit back and figure out why it went that way. And when you do, you'll find out you probably did something wrong. So, and I think if you covered those 4 things, sleep, nutrition, exercise and thoughts, then you find that you just don't get these pains anymore. I'm 38 and I feel 15 years younger than I did 15 years younger. I feel better than I did 15 years ago. I'm bouncing around, loads of energy and things like that. And I know that if I do have a day where I'm a little bit off or I'm a bit slow, I can go back and go, I didn't look after this part of my day. And then so I just know that you can look after those 4 things, and you just find that you're just not the same person. You can kill off that old personality little by little and create this new one that doesn't have those same sort of hang-ups. But understanding things like when you bite into cheese, the dopamine release and all these other things, that's what I was trying to learn about as well with the alcohol thing, what it does when you actually drink alcohol. It's a big trick of the mind why we drink it in the first place. And when you start educating yourself on those things as well, so if you do have someone who is really like say, I'm addicted to Coca-Cola, just read what it's doing to the brain, what the reaction is, and then you realise you don't love these things. It's just a trick of the mind.
Amazing. Look, Daz, I really could speak to you for hours and hours, and I'm hoping that we'll have a bit of a talk after we finish here today. I really appreciate your time going up here. I know that you do care for your father, your elderly father, and I know that you even brought your son up here just so you could do the podcast with us today. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
No worries. Thanks, Alan.
Thank you so much. And so if you've enjoyed this particular podcast, there's probably a few things here that we've been speaking about which might enlighten you. For some people, it might be one of those things that might even frighten you. But if you've enjoyed it, and I hope you have, then please share this podcast, share the hell out of it, because if we can get people talking and learning about some new ways of thinking, that would be a great thing as well. And we will leave some details. If anyone is interested in getting in touch with Daz as far as the lessons and knowing a bit more about how to teach the children,
great.
Then there will be a way of getting hold of you. But thanks so much for your time today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thanks, Alan.
And this is the end of the podcast. Thank you very much for listening in, and I will speak to you soon. Take care.